Okay, so we have the recording going now. So our fellow classmates that aren't here can watch this video later and get caught up to speed. And with that housekeeping out of the way, now I'm going to jump on our modules tab and show you guys some of the stuff I've been working on to improve your class and give you a little bit better experience. Like I shared last week, as we go through stuff, we're now pretty much finished with our week 1 information, and we're in this week 2 information, and we'll be pushing through to some of this week 3 info. Like I shared, what I saw as a deficiency in this class from feedback, just from my own observation and feedback from students who took AT100 online last fall, was that, hey, there really wasn't anything on brakes in there. There was a little bit on engines, there was stuff on tires, there just wasn't really a module in brakes. And that does kind of follow our curriculum. When it was originally written, this course evolved from a course that was called like Keep Your Wheels Rolling, and it was very much focused on just the do-it-yourselfer. And there was concerns that we didn't want folks at home doing their brakes and then getting in accidents or anything like that. But what I have found from dealing with several do-it-yourself mechanics is it doesn't matter what I tell them or not. Like, brakes is a common area that, one, people want to know about, and two, whether I tell them or not, they're going to start working on them because that's a common maintenance item on our cars. And, I'd rather you have the information than not have the information. So what I've done is, looking at our various weeks, week 3 and 4 had 2 separate things that were kind of light in information, right? We had tools, and there was a lot of tools, but then they had a whole separate week for just like chemicals and jacking and lifting a car. And really, that worked really well, putting those 2 things together. So if you look at this now, what you'll see is we have a 3A and a 3B. I just essentially smashed those 2 things together. It's still not a whole lot of work. And what this is going to do is it's going to free up an extra week for us so that we can get into brakes. And then I've been shifting stuff around. So there might still be a few assignments or things that are out of place. I've pretty well worked out through week 6. And what that means, if I erase these little notations, is if we scroll down here, we're gonna, instead of kind of doing a bunch of other stuff, I know you guys, if you are a do-it-yourselfer at home, you probably want info that you can use at home, right away to do some work. And so the common areas usually start with a vehicle inspection. So we're going to jump into vehicle inspections and pretty quickly with week four. And this vehicle inspection here, this is like your under hood inspection. This would be, you're not putting the car up on jack stands or anything. You're really just looking at everything that you can see, on the surface on top of your car, similar to what they would do at a used car place, minus the under vehicle inspection. So we're looking at everything that we can see. We're going to take a look underneath our hood and look at belts and hoses and fluid levels. That's what this is right here. Now, week 5 then, week 5 is all about the undercar then. So by this point, we've already got into, how to lift a car, and we have some great videos here. One of our adjunct instructors, Leo Gutierrez from Roseville BMW, made a couple of nice videos, and you can kind of go underneath the car with him and do that inspection just like they would do at the dealer. And I'll be honest with you guys, vehicle inspections is the bread and butter of what we do in the automotive industry, because it's how we diagnose a lot of our problems, how we identify a lot of stuff is just by looking at the car and having a good light and knowing what to look for. So that's why we're going to get into those right away. And then from there, I clear out those drawings and we scroll down a little bit. Then we're going to move into tires and wheels, and then brakes. And then that should take us up to our midterm in there. So anyways, we've kind of reorganized things. And then we'll finish up with other things towards the end. But I wanted to get you into the common service areas as quickly as I could, with the thought that some of you guys probably want to work on stuff at home or do some things, at least know about some services. So we'll get into that stuff, which I think is, you know, arguably some of the more interesting stuff right away to begin with. Okay, so it's a work in progress, because as you change one date on one thing, like everything else gets shifted, but I am working to get stuff streamlined out, and basically the big addition for our class will be that that brakes inspection and service segment. Anyway, so that's what you'll have there to kind of look forward to. I'm also adding in lots of links that really weren't there before. So I wanted to show you some cool stuff. We haven't got there quite yet, but you know, there's even stuff like this link right here will take us to a little belt tool that you can get free from Gates if you fill out their little thing, and how to check for wear on EPDM belts, and just all kinds of little tricks and tips. I even got a link here where you can download an app on your phone and use your phone, the acceleration sensor in your phone, to help you test your shock absorbers and stuff. So as many resources as I can give you guys, I'm going to try to do just that. Okay. So with that, let me see if I can get my other tab going.
Quick question.
Yeah.
When are we going to get into the more advanced?
Well, give me some more. What would be more advanced? Give me some specifics here. Because remember, this is our basic course, so the whole concept is not to go really in depth.
For me, swapping front end, so like converting live front axle to A-arm on standard.
Right. So that's really beyond the scope of this class. I'd be happy to help you with that type of stuff one-on-one. That's really something, you know, I would say you would do that in the suspension and steering class, but really that's almost like one of those things where normally after a student has had the suspension and steering class, they sign up for a class that's called, oops, let's see if I can get it on the screen here. I got too many. Hang on a sec. Move this window. We have a class called AT100, which is called Skill and Speed Development. And that's normally where we do those types of special projects. However, I'd be happy to help you with that one-on-one, right? Anytime you get into customizing stuff, like changing stuff from the way the original equipment manufacturer, you know, initially, you know, sold it to you or designed it or something, unless you're installing in like an option, like, you know, this car came with the manual, but you want to put an automatic in there, and that was an option for that year. You know, once you start making major modifications, essentially you're kind of becoming the engineering team, right? And you're going to end up having to fabricate some things, and you're going to find problems, and you're going to have to shift stuff on the fly, so to speak. So for example, one of my instructors, Dave Burkhardt, who teaches at San Juan High School, he's in the process of converting his old Land Cruiser to disc brakes all around, and he wants them power brakes, and he's putting a hydro boost on there. and he's, you know, gone through all types of different renditions of, you know, what power steering pump to use, and then what hydro boost unit, and what master cylinder does that work with, and you know, he's ended up having to buy 3 different master cylinders before he found the right one that works, because he had one that worked really good, but when he closes his hood, it doesn't quite clear, and this and that and the other. So what I would caution you is, whenever you start making major modifications, just be prepared that you're essentially the engineer, and you're going to find some difficulties and stuff. Whenever possible, if there's someone else who has done the switch, done that swap before you, and, you know, if you can look up what they did and what problems they encountered and learn from their experience, that will definitely save you time, money, frustration, everything like that. Because very often people jump into stuff. And even, I'll give you another example. I had another instructor. His wife has a little Alfa Romeo. See if I can pull up a picture of it. Pretty cool little car. Yeah, there we go. Male spider. Yep, looks just like that. It's pretty cool. But you know, it's an Italian car with an old Italian electrical system, and it's still in the smog program, being in 82, and so some of the smog controls were pretty funky. And so my colleague, he got the great idea. He goes, you know what? I'll just throw a Miata engine and transmission in that thing, right? Because Mazda Miatas are pretty bulletproof, they're reliable, they're simple. And he had, you know, some of our students rip the engine and transmission out, and he has another group, the next semester, and they're going to put this Miata motor and stuff in there. And they start getting it in there, and the whole time I keep telling them, now wait a minute, have you found anybody else that's done this swap before? Can you learn from their experiences? And he's like, no, but I can figure it out. You know, he's like, I'm a master mechanic, right? Well, we get it all in there, and it's real obvious the Miata motor doesn't fit, because the Miata motor is a lot taller. The Alfa Romeo motor is slanted on the side like an old Chrysler Slant 6, and it just has it's got a little bit wider profile, but it's got a much lower profile. And so we would have had to cut and fabricate and just change all types of the front suspension components and cross members. It would have been really extensive. And he realized that was way beyond what he wanted to do. And so then we got on the rabbit trail of, okay, well, let's fix the engine that's in it. And of course, it had been ripped apart, like, with nobody paying attention how stuff went. And that car is still sitting at the ARC Auto Shop. So anyways, that's my like little bit of caution whenever you do big jobs, right? Step 1 would be find some other sucker who's done the same thing, and whatever you can learn from what they've done, learn it, right? They had to run different springs, or they had to, you know, try to pick that stuff up so that you can, you know, get ahead of those problems, and you don't end up buying a bunch of parts that you end up not using, or they don't work, or you have to modify them, or and that will go a long way whenever you're doing stuff like that. This class, part of the reason we can even run it on a online only format, the way the school district and everything would let us do it, is because we are pretty light duty. We're just kind of scratching the surface, so to speak. And if we are doing any ASE preparation, remember that we're really just trying to get you guys ready for that ASE G1 exam, which is that general service maintenance light repair test. I'm like, why does it say skill and speed? Oh, because I wrote that there. Get rid of that. So anyways, hopefully that answered your question. It's probably not what you wanted to hear. That's kind of where we're at. However, I do have exciting information to share with you guys. All right, so let's get into that right now. So I'm going to go to the ARC Insider homepage. This is kind of like my teacher homepage, and you can see that, hey, what's the replan for reopening? where there's a whole strategy here that the college has a great team trying to figure out how to reopen campus, and they just put together their report. And the long and short of the report is, as our greater Sacramento County area, if it moves lower and lower on the infection rate as we move from the purple into the red zone, right? And then you go from the red tier down to the orange, that's going to allow classes that are impossible to convert online, like our suspension course or the skill and speed. It's going to allow us to run those classes. So that means we're going to be some of the first classes back. So because of that, tentatively, I do have I'll put the course number up, AT311 suspension and steering course, tentatively scheduled for the second 8 weeks of this semester. So that means that class would start somewhere right around March 20th or so. If we get the go ahead to run it. And somebody told me today that Sacramento just moved from the purple tier to the red tier. So if we can stay down in that red tier for a few weeks, I would likely get the green light to run that class. So we are really trying very diligently to get the types of classes that I know you guys want to take running again. We want to be teaching those classes again too. The format will be a little bit different. It's going to be a mix of this and a mix of hands-on, and that we're going to take a class. We're going to have less people in it. Okay. So we're likely going to have 16, maybe 20, 18, 20 students tops. We're going to take you guys as a class and cut you in half so that in any one day, we'd only see 8 or 9 students. And basically we would do the lectures online like this, and we would do the labs in person in small groups. So everybody's kind of working on their own individual project. So that's our format. We're really pushing to make that happen. It depends on the county, infection rates, the green light from the school. But like I said, they have a really well thought out reopening plan that would put us right in the queue, so to speak, to be one of the first classes back. And then I just got to get our shop ready to go. So, which that itself is a big endeavor right now, guys. Anyways, so we're working on that. So I wanted to share that with you. I was really, really encouraged when I got to read that reopening plan. That they were going to allow us to do that. So it's definitely good news all around. If that doesn't work, then we have a full selection of classes to run for the summer. Like I'm going to run that AT140 skill and speed class this summer, and then we'll do a full selection of classes in the fall, and we'll just keep cranking stuff out as much as we can. And we will probably be in that hybrid format for a while, where the lectures will be online, the labs will be in person, and we'll be switching off and having half the class come on any one day. That's our process moving forward for the time being. Probably until as a county or region we move to like the green category where everything's good. We'll probably be in that small group setting. I'm thinking that might work really good. I have had the opportunity to do all kinds of factory training with Honda and Ford and Toyota and General Motors and oops, we don't want that. We want this. And pretty much all the manufacturers do just that. They have a small class session with maybe 8 to 12 students. And before you go to school, you do lots of, the theory type work. You do that online. And when you get to class, you really focus on the hands-on activities. And so it's very much like a lot of factory training is done these days. All right. So I probably killed you with that answer, but that's where we're going. I've kind of given you guys an overview of where what we're going to be going into in the class. And remember, this class is our overview class. It's our survey class. We kind of like hopefully fill in some gaps between other areas, and we'll present some stuff that you maybe haven't heard before. We're not going into super deep detail. From this class, remember what we do is we then divide up the car into the ASE areas. So I guess I should go back to ASE, see if I can just throw up a list of that. We'll go right there. I don't want to buy a bunch of stuff. That is not what I wanted. There we go, maybe. There we go. No, I'm not real crazy about this there we go, test series. Not real crazy about this new ASE website. So this is the list I was looking for, A1 through A9. So from AT100, our program splits up into specific categories to exactly align with these ASE test areas. So like in the fall, I'll teach our engine repair course, which happens to be AT314, 314, and it's all built curriculum-wise to perfectly line up with that that area, right? This summer, we are planning to run a heating and air conditioning class, right? Because that lines up with that area. It's the 310 class. And it makes sense, right? Air conditioning work's really popular in the summer. We want to prep you guys for the workforce, that type of thing. So from this class, we dive in to the specific areas and really go in deep in these various things. And then what you don't see on here is some of our support stuff, like the 140 class, which is skill and speed. So it opens up to multiple things and more hands-on projects. All right. So with that, let's get back to where we are in this particular course. And we are cruising through week 2 and week 3 information. And with that, what I want to do now is change my screen share, and we'll go to that screen. Move some stuff around here. And what I'm doing is I'm opening up our CDX online access. Now, let me take one step back, and I'm going to type in just Google. I'm going to CDX automotive, and that should take us to here. So this book, I know I've shown you this thing a little bit before. We talked about how there's a discount code and stuff available for you. It's in one of our discussion tabs. This is the book and online learning management program that we use for the majority of our classes. So engine repair, heating and air conditioning, suspension and steering, right? Like all those core classes, this is what we use. And so what I'm going to jump into and use some resources of right now is this online access thing right here. Okay. So with that, I've already logged in, and just like the ASE tests, this thing divides the car up into those sections, right? So we have our ASE 0 section, which is safety and basics. And a lot of our AT100 stuff falls into this ASE 0. Think of that as like the pre-ASE area. And then like ASC Area 1 would be engine repair. And there is all kinds of cool stuff. And so one of the things that I haven't launched yet, but I will get it worked in there, is what I call CDX Pro Work, which will be some work that you can do out of this CDX program for those of you who decide to get this thing, just to get you some extra knowledge and information in there. And so I'll just scratch the surface on some of the stuff that's in here. Like you guys have probably already learned that I'm kind of a big engines guy. And so here I am in chapter 12, which is all about different types of engines. I'm going to go to the media gallery. And what you'll see is there's all kinds of different engine designs and great animations and stuff on how they work. And there's even more exciting things from there. So like I'm a big rotary engine fan, and they have a neat little animation here of a rotary that's pretty good. How that thing works and cycles around, and it's really a neat design. Great little race engine, right? Just a super good for racing. If you miss a shift, you're not going to end up sucking valves. I mean, it's good. The downside of this type of motor is fuel economy and emissions. Okay, it doesn't get the best fuel economy, doesn't get the best emissions, and that's really what has killed it in recent years, especially in our United States market. But it doesn't use camshafts, it doesn't have valve springs. I mean, it's very, very simple, and just has a lot of power for its size. In this animation, you're likely following one of the rotor pieces around, but what you got to realize is that there's three sides to this rotor. So this one rotor is kind of like a 3-cylinder engine. And so a 2-rotor rotary engine, like you'd have in a Mazda RX-7 or RX-8, that would be, somewhat the equivalent of a little 6-cylinder engine. Okay, Tim, I got your message there. So great animations and great info here in these things. Also has a whole bunch of video clips in here, and we'll look at some of these tonight. But again, like, all kinds of good stuff. So I'll keep with that rotary engine theme, and I'll play this one real quick.
The rotor is mounted in an oval-shaped housing. The housing is made of aluminum alloy, but the curved surface has a hard chromium plating.
You can see that these videos, they're usually only a few minutes long. I want to say like the longest video in the CDX library will be 4 or 5 minutes, and they're purposely built that way so they should keep your attention. They get to the information. I would say the one downside is there's so much information in just a few minutes. Oftentimes I find that I got to play them a few times to get it all out of there. Okay, all that good information. By the way, one of the things that happens on these is this chrome, when they have been abused, or they just have a lot of miles on them, or maybe they've been overheated, or somebody put a big turbo on there, or they went crazy with porting. Anyways, the chrome will start to flake off, and once the chrome flakes off, it essentially ruins this housing. And really, according to Mazda, you have to buy a new housing at that point. There is some aftermarket companies that can maybe shave a little bit of that chrome plating off, like the top surface layer, and get to a better layer underneath. And, depending upon who you talk to, that works well. And other people say it doesn't work. I've always had just new housings or good used housings. So I haven't used a replate or a resurface like from Goopy or some of these other aftermarket companies. But anyways, so lots of good video clips, animations, book type information is printed on there. A lot of resources in CDX. So let's actually get to the section that we're working on in our class right now, which of course is going to be that ASE 0, because we're doing some safety stuff. So I'm going to click into ASE 0 right there. I'm moving some of my zoom controls around. It's a little bit of housekeeping type stuff, as it seems like I always have my controls in the wrong spot. Okay. And, you know, if you look at it, like a lot of what we have done so far in this class really, you know, lines up with stuff that's in CDX, from vehicle service information.
Oh, shit.
Now we're going into hand tools and stuff. So a lot of those things do align pretty nicely. And just, so we're going to go into, where is it? We're going to go right here with some of our safety stuff. And again, all these little things that look like a book, well, that's like what is actually printed in the textbook. So you can see that it looks, if I open it, it looks like a book. There's a an audio thing, so you could click the speaker button and it'll read stuff to you. It incorporates the video clips, and it can even incorporate some of the animations and stuff mixed right in with the text. Okay. But what I do for teaching is I like to kind of cheat, and I'll just skip down here again to the media gallery and run off of that. So that's what you'll normally see me do most of the time. And for talking about safety stuff, I'm just going to pick on some of the images and stuff. So obviously, you know, when you're working on stuff, you don't want loose clothes that are going to get caught and stuff. A couple of the common things we see in the automotive shop is people showing up for school and they have like sandals or something on, and you really want to have some good work shoes, something that will protect your feet, especially if you drop something on there, or there's just all kinds of stuff that happens, and you want to keep your feet well protected and supported, right? Like arch support and, you know, some cushioning and stuff in there, but you want to keep them protected in the auto shop environment. Other things you see on here, they talk about gloves. You know, when I started as a mechanic, nobody wore these latex or Nertile gloves. Now these are pretty popular, especially when you're working on dirty, nasty stuff. Of course, a glove like that doesn't give you much heat protection, right? So, you know, it has its place, but it's not for everything. And you still lose a little bit of dexterity with that. But what we've seen over the last 20 years is that it's really a much healthier option for your body when your hands are not absorbing, you know, chemicals like brake cleaner and carb cleaner and oils and all those types of things. So normally when we're running our hands-on classes, we have boxes of gloves available for you guys for free that you can go up to the tool counter and get yourself some gloves for your class activities. Okay, so I got 50 windows of the same thing open. I'm just getting that stuff kind of closed out. All right. If you're using a solvent tank, though, you might wear some of those heavy-duty gloves. And that brings us to eye protection. Normally in our shop, we want everybody wearing just some regular old safety glasses like this right here. That are Z87 rated. So that's an important thing. It gives you a little bit of impact. Put that Z87, a little bit of that impact resistance there. It gives you some around the eye protection on the sides. And so those work pretty good. If you get prescription glasses, like these glasses I'm wearing are actually have some shatter resistance. If I got some very stylish side shields and clipped them on there, then I could wear these in the shop for general service work. What that we find in the industry is every eye injury usually takes somebody out of work for like 3 days. And so it's a big loss of productivity. And remember, as mechanics, even though these days we're getting paid usually hourly, almost all shops give you a bonus for a certain productivity level. So you're definitely not going to be able to get that bonus if you're not actually working on cars. And so one of the things we try to do as we work on stuff is to not hurt ourselves as we're working on it, right? So we're really trying to take care of our body, take care of ourselves. Just like if I'm doing an endurance race, the whole time it's like I want to go fast in the car, but I don't want to push it too hard because I don't want to break the car. Well, it's the same concept here. We don't want to break our bodies as we're working on stuff, right? Because then we can't do anybody any good. So safety glasses are a big one. Normally we don't wear like face shields and stuff unless we're doing some grinding or cutting, something pretty gnarly that is really going to be making some sparks, some debris. Obviously, if we're welding, we would need a welding mask on. And there's two different types. So you notice that this guy here, this stylish individual, he is wearing the smaller goggles. This would be like for gas, oxygen, acetylene welding. It doesn't produce the same UV light. So these are almost like really, really dark sunglasses, if you will. Whereas if you're MIG welding, it makes an electric arc, which is much more hazardous to your eyes. And so that has a much darker shield to protect your eyes. And I'll tell you, this is a real deal. I remember my shop owner, Howard, we were under a push and we were trying to get a cat welded on a car, a catalytic converter, so it would pass smog. And he couldn't see, he couldn't get in there with his mask. And at some point, because he was in a hurry, he decided, I'm just going to throw some sunglasses on and weld up this cat and get it done. He missed like a week of work after that because his eyes like glazed over. He said the next morning it felt like he had sand in his eyes. He just couldn't see anything because he didn't wear the right eye protection.
With
he was doing some
with the acetylene,
Yeah.
don't you have to worry about radiation burns? So wouldn't it make it more sense for the entire face?
Well, with the acetylene, you can get burns. I don't know if they're radiation burns though. You definitely can get heat and smoke and stuff, but you don't have the same like UV level of light being emitted that you have with anything electric. Like if you're MIG welding or TIG welding or arc welding, all that, the light aspect of it is much higher. And I can tell you like sunburn wise, like if I wasn't wearing leathers and stuff, or like I would physically get sunburned. Like my face would look all red and stuff if I wasn't wearing a full mask, or like if I wasn't wearing long sleeves like you're supposed to. I've never had that same experience doing oxygen acetylene stuff. Now it's, so I don't think that you're getting radiation off of that style of welding. But I will say this, that, oxygen acetylene welding, it's not like my primary thing. It's something that I do. And more commonly these days, I won't do gas welding. I might use a gas torch to cut something apart, but I won't typically be welding in that manner because it's a pretty slow job, right? So anyways, yeah, so maybe there's something there that I'm missing. That has not been my experience.
I was just wondering because I know on MIG, I know radiation burn. I've been burned like that multiple times, but I didn't know about acetylene.
No, I think it's not producing as much heat. It's not producing as much light or UV, and I would suspect the same thing for any types of skin burns and stuff. It's gonna be easier on you. It's just, it's a much slower welding process. It's going to be harder to get the penetration and stuff you need. So for light duty stuff, I mean, we'll use it a lot for like heating up parts and getting stuff together or apart, and like I said, using the cutting torch. All right, let's get back to where we were. Okay. So a couple other things that are just kind of basic stuff, but man, this one, I don't know, we tend to screw this up all the time, is don't lift with your back, right? Like you want to lift with your legs. And it's one of those things where a lot of times you might lift something and you think, oh, I didn't really use my back. And it's not till the next day or the day after where you really feel it. And then I'll tell you, as I've gotten older, you start feeling it more and more and more and more. And you start feeling injuries that you didn't realize you had. So just some of this simple stuff, keep that in mind, right? If you are going to be a mechanic over, a long time span, you're really you're in a marathon, right? So you gotta really pace yourself and focus on working efficiently without hurting yourself, which usually when you started, you're trying to be fast and you're working real hard and then you're getting real tired. And so this is a big one. Is just don't lift stuff with your back. Okay. So, lots of burns there. If you're working on stuff, of course, I clicked the button too many times, but if you're working on stuff, it's always good to have something to kind of flush out your eyes with. In the shop, we have multiple eye wash stations, but you know what I do in my home shop here? My little tech tip on this one is I keep like an old ketchup bottle handy with some water in it. And so if I did get something in my eye, I could flush my eyes out pretty quickly with that. It's kind of low budget, but it works. It's also handy for just other purposes if I need to throw some water on something real fast. Okay. So we picked on some of these safety things. Of course, the SB2 safety test does a better job really diving into a lot of stuff. And so remember, one of your assignments is to kind of go through that and get that certification through there. Remember, if you've never done SB2 before, your first thing will be to use the link to create an account. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back out of this safety chapter, and I'm going to get into our tools chapter and talk a little bit about some of my favorite tools and what tools you would use, when, and if you're starting out, what would be a good thing to start out with. Okay. And with this, this thing has some fun assignments here related to tools. If I can open it up here, it's kind of a fun animation for you to go through. Of course, I've opened up 3 of them because I'm impatient. And so there we go. I got to unlock the toolbox. And you know what's funny is I should have known that, right? I've done the animation before, but if you have a real top box, how all the drawers are locked is usually off of the top lid, right? So you have to unlock the top lid so that you can open the drawers. So they've tried to make it the same way. So anyways, so here we see we have a whole bunch of wrenches, right? And your most common style of wrench is going to be your combination or combo wrench, where it's got the same size on each end, but one end is a box end and the other end is the open end, right? And there's different matters of opinion here. However, I feel like if you're getting started in this day and age, my recommendation or tip for you on tools would be, unless you own like old American cars or something that you're working on them, like Ben has, will be to purchase metric tools first, right? We have metric and we have standard. Of course, I'm looking at metric right there. I have a 14 millimeter up on the screen. I would buy metric stuff first because these days everything's metric, right? And when I say these days, I mean loosely from the mid 1990s on forward. I don't care if it's a Chevy or a Ford or a Toyota or a Honda or a Saab or whatever. Everything's metric these days for almost everything. And so if you're just getting started and you don't own older cars, you don't own that 65 Chevy or that 77 Camaro or the, old Ford Bronco or whatever, that would require standard tools and you only had a limited amount of money, I wouldn't make that investment in metric tools first. And if I was going to buy a set of wrenches, I would get a set of combination wrenches right here because that's going to be what you do the majority of your work with. Now, my question for you guys, because I know some of you guys know this stuff already. When I look at the box end of this combination wrench, is that a 6-point or a 12-point, guys? What do you guys think? You can blurt it out. I can open up the chat, I think. There we go. And see, what do you guys think? Can you tell by looking at that? I can tell. I got the old eyes though. All right. I will eliminate the suspense. That's a 12-point because it's got a whole bunch of little bits on there in that it gives you more opportunities to get the end of that thing on a nut or a bolt. So it's got 12 different points to lock on. A 6-point socket or box end of a wrench is going to end up looking a little different. And so if I switch this guy to some images, and I had, where'd my image go? Open end, okay. Boom. Of course, I had to open it too many times. There is your 6-point versus your 12-point, right? So anyways, the 12-point gives you a little bit more flexibility, but what's the 6-point going to give you guys? What would be the advantage of that style?
Non-slip.
Yeah, it won't slip. It can handle more torque. It can handle more torque on there. By the way, when you're looking at wrenches, what you'll find is that cheaper wrenches will be shorter than like a nice Snap-on, Matco, like a professional wrench. They'll be able to make the metal, they'll be able to make the wrench longer so you can get more torque out of it. They'll usually be able to make it thinner, but because it's made out of better metal, better materials, they can keep it thin and light, but it still keeps the strength. So you can always tell when wrenches are made out of really cheap metal because they'll be like really, small, and they're not supposed to be a stubby wrench, but they're pretty small, and that's how they keep the strength in there and keep a lifetime warranty or whatever by shortening up that wrench. So I have some different wrenches here. We've been talking about this combination wrench here, and we can see I got a 10 millimeter right there, but there's a whole bunch of different ones here. So we got our open end wrench, right? That's B right here, where it's open ends on both sides. These used to be more popular. I don't know. I don't use my open ends that much. Sometimes when I'm doing bench work, sometimes it's kind of nice. When I need something for a couple of sizes and I'm doing like an adjustment, I can't handle a lot of torque off of an open end wrench because I'm really only putting pressure on two sides of that fastener, right? Of course, there's a box end wrench. That's A here. And that wrench is good in tight places. That's an offset box end wrench. And I've done some jobs, like I'll never forget my first timing belt job I did on a little Toyota Corolla. Like if I didn't go out and buy a set of offset box end wrenches like that, I wouldn't have been able to get the water pump bolts off, because you just couldn't get in there any other way unless you were willing to take one of your wrenches and like cut it and weld it. But you needed that kind of offset that allowed me to go in and then get the bolt on the fastener. Like this here was the bolt, and I just had to get in there, and I didn't have much room to work with. So sometimes that really, you know, that's what you need. So I would say, as far as wrenches, here's your bread and butter. This is what you're using most of the time, but there's certain instances where a specialty wrench like this is what gets the job done. And, you know, I look at this picture and I have every single one of these stupid wrenches. What I use most of the time, though, is right here. And of course, then I have them in both 6-point and 12-point. And this is how a mechanic ends up with, you know, $30,000 or more of tools. You know, I bought whole sets of these ones. This is a ratcheting box end wrench, and I thought these were slick until they came out with gear wrenches that are a much lower profile design and fit in tighter spots and are way superior. Anyways, so I have another question for you then. This one right here, D. They say it's a flare nut wrench. What the heck is that all about? What would I use the flare nut wrench for?
Is it the line wrench?
Yeah.
Or
In fact, we'll also call it a line wrench. Sometimes we'll call it a tubing wrench. And that's one of the things about, you know, working on cars and tools. Where'd my little text box go?
well, it's basically a box end wrench that has it's able to get on to bolts easier.
Yep.
For me, brake bleeds, brake bleed, yeah,
Yep.
brake bleed
You are
screws.
exactly right. Of course, I spelled. All right. So yeah, what they're calling a flare nut wrench, we'll also call a line wrench or a tubing wrench, and it works really good for things that are tubing. So like brake lines, the brake bleeder screws, fuel lines, anything where I really need to grab that fastener by more than just the two sides. I need a little bit more grip. See, that's only grabbing it on two sides. This grabs it a little bit there on the two sides. So it gives you a much more contact area, but I could still get a piece of fuel line, get it, you know, in and out of around there. So if you're doing brake work and fighting brake lines or fuel lines, any type of tubing with threaded fasteners on there, you could be doing a radiator job and you got to take the automatic transmission cooler lines off of the radiator. Like that type of wrench is going to be the wrench to do the job. So again, combination wrench is where you're at 90% of the time, but there's other wrenches for specialty areas. Now I have a question about, do we have a discount with Mac tools? And we do. In fact, I was trying to get one of our tool reps here tonight, and I'm really disappointed. My favorite rep that serviced us really well, Rick Best from Matco Tools, is moving on and moving to a different area. But the long and short of it is we have discounts with Mac, Matco, and Snap-on. And what it enables you to do is to buy those tools at basically like Sears Craftsman prices. So you can get the very best tools for like the medium tool prices. And so each manufacturer has their own student discount program. Right now I'm working on our Snap-on rep. Her name is Sherry, to try to get her to pop into our class next week. and talk to us a little bit about the tool discounts. But since that question came up in the chat, and thank you, Ramses, for asking it, let me see if I can grab a tab real quick and see if we can find some of these links. And I can give you the basics of all the student discount programs. And it works because we're an ASE certified, like a ASE certified program. And so we have, because of that certification, it proves that we're teaching, professional people to be automotive professionals. And so that gives us that partnership with those two manufacturers. Question.
O'Reilly's, they don't have the ARC discount anymore.
Which store were you going to? What did they tell you?
They looked it up on the system, and it's not on the system.
All right, I will get to the bottom of that.
All right.
Because I just bought, well, I should say our program just bought a bunch of crap from O'Reilly's. And so
I went in there and all they had was Consumnes Fire Department, and then they had I searched up American River, and nothing came up. So yeah. Well,
it might be. Now I can't remember. I can't remember if it's under like ARC student or if it's under like Los Rios, and then it's got like a subcategory for ARC student. I will figure it out and get back with you guys. I do remember it's listed a little weird, and we tried to make it better. And but yeah, that should still be going. We just got a whole bunch of stuff from the other day. In fact, I just ordered, I don't know, 15 or 20 of these little kind of inexpensive meters, but meters that we're checking out for the 181 class. And we're starting to restock, right? Because like I was telling you, our hope is that we're going to be able to open up on March 20th. Well, we gave all of our latex mechanics gloves. We donated all of these suckers to our emergency medical folks, and so we basically gave like $6,000, $8,000 supply of gloves away, and so we're going to have to restock up, and so we just started doing that. So I know we're spending the money. We have to have an account somewhere. So I'll see what the miscommunication was. Okay, so I got a note there in my notepad, and we'll follow up on that, and you'll probably find some info about it in the next class announcement. All right, so tools. Let's discount, and I want to say it's called Votech.
Oh, also, do we get like a discount with Holly?
Not that I'm aware of, although I don't know if I've tried that one. I think I've probably said this before, but hey, it never hurts to ask for that, ask to see what you can get, right? Sometimes it's like you could have got it and you just needed to ask for it. So yeah, I would ask for it. I don't think I've ever asked that question though. And so we might, but I haven't set anything up special to do that. So speaking of special programs though, here's our Matco tool tech program. And so every one of the big tool manufacturers, Matco, Mac, and Snap-on, have a deal like this. And it starts where you apply for the program. Now, for eligibility of all these things, they usually want you to be a full-time student, which is really hard to do right now because we're, of our situation. How most of them are pretty flexible on this right now, so that if you have automotive as your major, like you're committed, like you want a certificate or a degree from auto and your goal is to be ASE certified, that you can jump into one of these discount deals without being full-time, just because heck, we're not even running enough classes right now for you to be a full-time student, right? So you fill out an application, and you don't, not the credit one. Oop, back up, clicking stuff too fast. This one right here, you create your account online, and then there's a spot on here. Once you create your account, it's going to ask you for like what school you're in, who's your instructor. You would, put American River College, you put my name and stuff in there. At some point, what's going to happen is that I think it usually does it when you go to do your first order. You go to order tools, and they have it all set up online. So you can click the stuff, fill up your shopping cart, just like you would on like Amazon or something. And then when you go to order something, it's going to send me an email, and that email is going to ask me, is this guy a student of yours? Do they have an automotive major? That type of thing, to kind of verify that you are an auto student. Okay. If we go to Snap-on, they have a similar deal, and so will Mac. And of course, everybody will say that they have the best stuff. What I have found is there's certain things I like about one manufacturer and certain things I like about another. For instance, like the Snap-on stuff was really nice. I like the feel of the Mac wrenches in my hand a little bit better. I like some of the screwdrivers that Matco has, and some of their high vis stuff. But I've worked with guys. I had one of my good friends that I worked with a lot of years, Sean. All his stuff had to be Snap-on. His box was Snap-on, all his tools, like everything. He couldn't have any other brand. But I have always had a mix of stuff. I even got some Harbor Freight stuff, right? Because I'll tell you what, if you're at the pick and pull and you lose a tool, you sure don't want to lose a Snap-on tool there. So that's what's good about the Harbor Freight stuff sometimes. Okay, so they will have a little different deal. Snap-on is probably the most restrictive. I mean, what I found, like Mac and Matco really opened up their almost their entire tool collection for you to buy stuff. Snap-on has a specific catalog where these are the things that you can buy as a student. Now, there are a lot of the most popular stuff that you'd normally buy anyways, right? But they don't just let you buy anything. They do limit like what you can get.
Is it? What about what's the discount on the tool chests?
The discounts are pretty substantial, but they're not like 50%. Like the hand tools are usually 50% off of the list price, right? So if that ratchet was $100, you're going to be able to get it for $50, right? The toolboxes are usually vary somewhere between 30 to 40% for discounts on tool chests. And then sometimes they might be having like an extra special or something like that. So I will say that I really like Snap-on stuff. And technically we're a Snap-on school. We're a Snap-on certification center. Their student discount program is probably kind of the most restrictive, in that they do limit more which items you can get. For a long time, what I didn't like is that everything was sold in these kits like you see in the screen. And I would go, well, wait a minute. Like I already have like 3 of the things on the kit, but I don't have the other stuff, but I don't want doubles. And so back in my day as a student, I did buy some of this stuff. What I did is I would end up with some kits, and then I had doubles, right? And sometimes I'd keep the doubles because, hey, you always need extra stuff. But with some of the stuff that I didn't want to keep the double, I traded that into my tool guy for credit to get other stuff. So I kind of worked the system a little bit that way. But I want to say that Snap-on is allowing us to kind of mix and match these kits a little bit more. So you're not stuck into buying the whole kit. Again, with toolboxes, I want to say like Matco, you can buy like any of their toolboxes. Snap-on, they have only these certain ones that you can get, but again, these are a lot of the most popular ones. I want to say the one I have at the shop right now is this one right here. It's a pretty nice box, and I put the power strips on it. It's pretty sweet. But you know what? My tip for you guys is, if you're getting started and you're thinking, I do want to be a professional technician. I can't afford a huge toolbox. And for you guys who are totally new, like a really big toolbox, if you're paying like full price for a box like this, it's somewhere around, $3,000 to $6,000. Maybe not for this particular one, but I mean that some of these big toolboxes, they're expensive, and you go like, wait a minute, is there any tools in that? No, like that's the empty box, and it's thousands of dollars. And I know guys that they had $20,000 toolboxes. They had little shock absorbers on every wheel and all, so people do get like really tied up in this thing. The downside of buying a really nice box is, the first thing you want to do with that box is you want to fill that sucker full of tools. It's really easy to get yourself way in debt. So I always urge you to be cautious and ease your way into it. I would not buy, if I was starting up, I would not jump into a giant toolbox. I would buy myself a nice tool cart, because what you'll find is that most shops, you'll have your box, but a lot of times, especially when you're new, you're kind of like the Johnny on a spot guy. You're the one that you don't necessarily have a bay that's all your own. You have to work over in Fred's bay and then do another job over in the other bay. And so you got to be more mobile. And so the tool cart's really nice because you can kind of use it as a mini toolbox, and it gets you and your tools to where you need to be quickly. So my recommendation would not be to go for a big box, but to go more for the tool cart. I was trying to find a better, all these carts were pretty substantial. Like even that's really almost more of a smaller box. But that would be my recommendation. Motorcycle scan tool. Let's see. Look, they're getting me again. There's always, once you think you have everything, they come up with new stuff. Like, I have a nice 596 multimeter. Mine's set up looking more like this, and of course the new ones are like that. So, anyways, that's how they get you. They're always coming out with new trick stuff, and here's all kinds of specialty tools. We got, Ben's building some engines. Look, they got some precision measurement stuff that's super nice. Anyways, all kinds of stuff for you to spend your money on. Start slow, get what you need. Most of the hand tools, the student discount deal puts them about 50% off. The warning is Snap-on stuff is extremely, and I don't care if it's Snap-on or Mac or Matco, all those tools are really expensive. So like with the 50% discount, it costs about the same as if you went to Sears and paid full price. The difference is really you're getting a much better quality tool. It's going to be stronger, lighter, feels better in your hand, all that type of stuff. But it won't necessarily be like cheaper than what you could get at Sears or Lowe's or something on sale. Okay. Anyways, the big trend these days, which is different than when I was a tech, is our cordless electric power tools, right? And so like I have just this little one here, and I have the ratchet. My tip is like, get as much junk that's using the same battery. Well, if I have the giant battery, it really limits where I can fit the tool. So I sacrifice, I think this is the one I have. I sacrifice some strength for a little bit of, size and flexibility. So I have that one and this one, and I really like them, and they're strong enough for most of what I do. Am I breaking wheel lug nuts loose with this thing? I can, if they haven't been over torqued. I'll usually break them loose by hand. Something like one of these guys would break them loose a little better. But I just like the size, and they share the same battery pack, which is really nice, right? When you go to cordless electric, you're kind of tied into that battery pack. So make sure you get stuff that matches, so you can mix and match battery packs between them, and something that's a battery pack that's going to be used for a while. Nothing's worse than having a tool and then they outdate the battery pack, and then you don't have a way to charge that tool. Ooh.
What's the difference between that
That's what I
and
need,
the
'cause I do have-
Milwaukee?
Milwaukee stuff's really nice. I would say the Milwaukee stuff is just as good of a quality as this. And of course, Milwaukee's a little bit more accessible for everybody, right? Like Snap-on stuff's going to be harder to get unless you're working at a shop where you order it through the student tool discount deal, right? And I want to say Milwaukee might be making the tools for Mac or Matco, but one of the big three that it's really like Milwaukee stuff that's been rebranded. So Milwaukee is really, really good stuff. There's nothing wrong with that stuff. That's good stuff. So anyways, so I'll try to get one of our reps in to talk a little bit more about this, because I'm sure there's a few things that I shared that maybe aren't exactly correct because something about the program's changed, or they got a new special, or there's always different things going on. But all these things, the basis of it is that, you have to, maybe not be a full-time automotive student, but that's got to be your major. That's what you're working towards. And you fill out an application. At some point, the tool company is then going to contact me as your instructor to verify that, yes, you're really in the auto program. Yes, that, this is your goal. And I got to basically say, yep, okay. And then they'll sell you the stuff at discount. I want to, years ago when I first started, we actually had somebody that was not a student, but they said they were a student, and they bought all kinds of stuff. I want to say from Snap-on, and then they did the verification, and it's like, no, this guy doesn't go to school here. And we go through all the teachers, and then they ended up sending that guy a big bill. Hey, you owe us a missing $3,000 because you got all this stuff at 50% off, and you're not a verified student. So anyways, that's how those programs work. They do end up verifying that you are a student in the program. What I will say is, don't buy a bunch of stuff that you can't afford, even if you are getting a good deal on it, right? If you're going into debt, it's still not a good deal for you then. But if you can afford to do it as a professional mechanic, you do need to have your own tools, and it's a great opportunity to get really, really nice tools for an inexpensive price. Or not inexpensive, but a less expensive price. How about that? So with that, let's see, I demoed a little bit of CDX. I wanted to give you one more tech tip on this image that loaded up, because I'm seeing the time, and time has been flying by. So you see this wrench here, okay? This is a torque wrench. Now, a torque wrench isn't a regular wrench. Think of a torque wrench as a precision measurement device, right? It's going to measure how much torque, twisting or turning effort you're putting on those fasteners. And when you're doing engine rebuilds and transmissions and really anything that matters, the manufacturer is going to specify how many foot-pounds or Newton meters of torque they want on those parts. Well, you notice that this one looks computerized. This is a digital torque wrench. And my tip for you is if you're looking for a torque wrench, the digital wrenches work very well, but there's two versions. This black one is the one in the Snap-on brand that I would want, in that it's a tech angle wrench. So it can measure not only how tight you're making stuff, but how many angles of degrees you're torquing it down to, where they have some ones that are less expensive that can measure the torque, but not the angle of degrees. And why is that important? Because a lot of fasteners these days, when I look at their tightening procedure, it will tell me to torque things down to a specific number of degrees. Okay. And you know, it's not for just like putting wheels on your car, but as you get more advanced. So I'm going to go to our
like this one.
ShopKey Pro. Yeah, I'm going to go to ShopKey Pro real quick and show you what I'm talking about, to give you a procedure. And so a car that I relatively recently was working on, which is an older car, but it was vehicle selection. It had a pretty elaborate procedure. I'm going to go to a 91. So this thing's, 30 years old now. Ford Thunder Chicken. And this was the Super Coupe. So it has a 3.8 liter V6 that's supercharged. And on this one, you're doing some cylinder head gaskets, and cylinder heads replace. Okay. Okay, so bolt tightening sequence. So check out this procedure to put on the cylinder head. First, you had to, step one, you torqued it down to 37, 45, 52. You kept tightening it down more and more. Then you backed it off. Then step 6, you torqued it down. Then you went an additional amount of degrees on there, right? Well, the problem is, like, you needed to go 90 degrees. Sometimes you were down working in this car. You could move that wrench 90 degrees. But with a tech angle wrench, you can move it like 30 degrees, back, do another 30, do another 30, and it kept counting those degrees. So it made that process really nice. So bringing this back to what my tech tip was, if you are going to make the investment in one of these digital torque wrenches, which is fine, it's a good thing to have, spend the money to get the one that measures the amount of angle on the degrees and stuff, because you'll end up using that feature on a lot of your late model vehicles. And heck, that car I showed you was 30 years old, and that made that job a lot easier. Okay, so if you're looking for a more basic wrench, just get a click style torque wrench. But if you're going to make that step up in torque wrench and get a digital one, get it where it's got the angle inclinometer deal, so that you can keep track of how many degrees you're turning the wrench. So, all right. So like I said, I always try to give you guys multiple tech tips, right? From starting with metric tools to different wrenches. And of course, we are kind of just scratching the surface. What I am going to do is I'm going to switch my screen shares and pull us back to our class. So what we kind of did is talk a little bit about our hand and power tools. We didn't get all the way through MSDS and stuff. Remember how we've put this together is if you, if you go into the assignment for each week. So like I go into week 3A assignment, it has the video links of like these videos will support this assignment. How do you properly put your car on jack stands and lifts and stuff? It's got the worksheets. It's got the quiz. So when you go to the assignment thing, like all the stuff's actually there for you to do that thing. And it even has an area that you could reply to this and ask a question, and it will give me a little notification on there as well. So anyways, I guess what I'm trying to get to is that I know I've been yapping at you for over an hour now, but I am really just kind of hitting the highlights. And so what I want you guys to do is make sure that you then go into these assignments and really do your due diligence and watch the video clips and look at the materials we put together for you. Like for instance, this crazy looking guy right here is Mr. Ha.
Part 2 of our
And Mr. Ha's a great guy, and he goes through filling out the worksheets, and he goes through his personal toolbox and shows you a bunch of stuff. So it might not be the most exciting thing out there, but he has tons of good information. And so you can use these videos to complete the worksheets if you don't have your own stuff to go over. What we'll be loading onto your Canvas platform is some of the activities that kind of integrate using the CDX. So if you guys have decided to jump in and buy that CDX book, you'll have some activities you can use for that. And then what will happen is you'll be able to earn way more points than you need just to pass the class. And that will enable you as the student to kind of mix and match what kind of works for you. Remember that I'm a big believer that education should be personalized, and that allows you to kind of pick the stuff that works well for you. So if you have CDX, you really like working out of that platform, you can do that. Or you can do the worksheets and stuff that we've laid out for you this way as well. So you'll have some options. I'm continuing to load stuff and kind of fine tune our information. All right. So with that, do you guys have questions, comments, or concerns that I can help you address? I have my ARC student discount tool discount deal on my notepad here to follow up on. I'll make sure I open back up the chat. And I just want to make sure that I give everybody a moment here to go through all, if there's any last questions on there, I can answer that stuff. But I always like, sharing my knowledge with you guys and talking about automotive stuff. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I know I went a little bit over where I wanted to go, but I always like to pack in as many tech tips as I can. And I really like to, if you're spending your money to buy tools, spend it smartly. So with that, I'll give you my very last tech tip, because I don't see a bunch of questions coming up on the chat or anything. And that is, if you are going to work in the field, you have heard me say that at some point you're going to need your own tool. And you've heard me also say that a master mechanic will have thousands of dollars in tools. That being said, in today's automotive industry, due to the different rules and regulations that are in place, usually as a beginning mechanic, the shop will provide their tools for you. So you can get started with no tools. Once you move over to the point where you're pretty good at working on cars, you don't have to have somebody watching over you. If they say, hey, change oil on that, or flush the cooling system, or replace the radiator, or do front brakes on that. And you can just bang those jobs out. You can do those jobs without, assistance. And you're really kind of moving beyond just like basic maintenance to now you're getting to be a mechanic. At some point, that shop is going to want to move you from that basic category to be more of a journeyman level status. And at that point is where you need your own tools. So when you have your own tools, the rule is double minimum wage. Now that's been the rule for a long time. But what happened, maybe 10 years ago now, is that, finally somebody got sued over it. Back in my day, that was the rule. But guess what? I had to have my own tools, and nobody was going to give you a double minimum wage if you couldn't fix your way out of a paper bag. What happened about 10 years ago is some lawsuits came forward, and through that, they decided, well, I can't just pay somebody double minimum wage if they, again, can't actually fix anything. They just own a lot of tools. That doesn't make any sense, right? But what this has caused is now for everybody who's starting out, the shops will generally provide their own tools to let that student or that beginning level employee, beginning level tech work out of until they can kind of get stuff figured out. Once they get to the point where they're going to be moved out of that kind of beginner status and you're making money for the shop, that's the point where you need to step up and have your own tools. So you're probably not going to need them right away, but you're likely to need them down the road. I would be surprised if you started somewhere and they were going to pay you, a low wage and expect you to have a complete tool set. Okay. So anyways, that's a bunch of stuff on tools. Hopefully that does you some good. Remember, at the end of the day, we have to fix the cars. So I can't stress enough that I don't want you to walk away from this lecture thinking, hey, if I just have a nice complete tool set, I'll get double minimum wage, right? No, you have to be able to fix the cars. So I always looked at, like, well, how much money did I get paid that day? The bay that I worked out of, I needed to be generating 3 times that amount in income in repairs for the shop. If I could do 3 times my wage as income, I was a pretty darn valuable employee. So that's a way to kind of rate your productivity and what you're doing. All right, with that, I'll let you guys get back to your real lives. Thank you for hanging out with me for this last hour and a half or so. Hopefully I've made it worth your while, giving you lots of stuff. I will look in for those student tool part discounts at O'Reilly's and see what the holdup there is. And hopefully next week we'll have one of our tool reps with us that can answer more of our student tool discount questions as we move on to the proper ways to lift a car and jump into those vehicle inspections, which, like I said, is the bread and butter of the automotive service industry today. All right. Stay safe, everybody. And, happy working on stuff, right? Like, keep learning, keep having fun. I'll see you guys next week. Okay. Take care.
Mr. French, I need a recommendation on turning over the oil pump because I need to cycle oil